Noah's Ark, right where the Bible said it would be, just a little bit underground, and so far you say what you're finding matches up.
Imagine standing on a windswept mountain ridge in eastern Turkey, staring down at something that shouldn't exist, a massive, boat-shaped impression carved into the earth itself, stretching longer than a football field and pointing directly towards secrets humanity has wondered about for millennia. What if the greatest story ever told wasn't just a story at all? Deep in the rugged highlands near Mount Ararat, researchers have uncovered evidence so startling that it's forcing scientists and skeptics alike to reconsider everything they thought they knew about ancient history.
Researchers in Turkey now claim they found indisputable evidence that the story of Noah's Ark was not a cautionary tale, but a verifiable historical event.
The discovery they've made here isn't just reshaping archaeology, it's shaking the foundations of belief itself. The site in question is called the Durupinar Formation, and it's been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years. Nestled in a remote valley surrounded by snow-capped peaks, this strange geological feature first caught the world's attention back in the 1950s when a Turkish military pilot flew overhead and noticed something bizarre below. From his vantage point high above the landscape, he spotted an unmistakable outline etched into the mountainside, a colossal ship-like shape that looked as though it had been frozen in time, grounded on the slopes as if the waters that once carried it had simply vanished. Word spread like wildfire through the local villages, and soon enough, curiosity seekers from around the region began making the trek to see it for themselves. What they witnessed left many of them speechless, a formation so deliberate in appearance that calling it a natural accident seemed almost absurd. But this wasn't just local folklore gaining traction. By the 1960s, international media outlets were paying attention. The BBC sent a film crew to document the formation, while National Geographic dispatched photographers who hauled their equipment up the steep mountain terrain to capture images of this enigmatic shape. Television coverage brought the site into living rooms across the globe, and suddenly the world was asking the same question. Could this actually be the resting place of the most famous vessel in human history? What made the Durupinar Formation so captivating wasn't just its appearance, it was the measurements. Stretching 538 feet from end to end, the formation's dimensions aligned almost perfectly with the biblical description of Noah's Ark, which was said to be 300 cubits long. The width and height also seemed to echo the ancient measurements described in Genesis, creating a match so precise that dismissing it as mere coincidence became increasingly difficult. Professor Faruk Kaya from Agri Ibrahim Sechen University was among the researchers who couldn't ignore the site's potential significance. When he first set foot on the formation, the experience left him deeply moved. Speaking to journalists from the Jerusalem Post, he described the sensation of walking across the mound as though he were treading on the spine of some enormous creature that had been entombed beneath layers of mud and millennia. The atmosphere felt heavy with history, as if the land itself was holding its breath, waiting for someone to finally unlock its secrets. For Kaya and his colleagues, this wasn't about chasing myths or validating religious texts. It was about following the evidence wherever it might lead, even if that path took them into territory where science and ancient narrative unexpectedly converged. The initial surveys involved fundamental scientific work, mapping the terrain, taking precise measurements, and collecting soil samples for laboratory analysis. Yet even these basic procedures began yielding results that surprised even the most hardened skeptics on the team, setting the stage for discoveries that would capture worldwide attention. As the research intensified, scientists knew they needed to dig deeper, literally and figuratively. The team assembled at Durupinar wasn't content with surface-level observations or circumstantial evidence. They wanted concrete data, the kind that could withstand rigorous scrutiny from the international scientific community. In 2021, a coalition formed between Istanbul Technical University, Agri Ibrahim Sechen University, and Andrews University in the United States. Together, they launched a comprehensive investigation that would employ cutting-edge technology to peer beneath the Earth's crust and reveal what had remained hidden for thousands of years. The breakthrough came through geological analysis of the formation's composition. Scientists discovered that the mound consisted primarily of limonite, a type of iron ore that had been shaped and compressed by tremendous forces over time. But the real revelation emerged when they began examining the soil itself. Laboratory tests showed something remarkable. The earth within the formation contained nearly 3 times the organic material found in the surrounding landscape. Andrew Jones, the lead scientist on the project, explained the significance to Fox News Digital with barely contained excitement. According to Jones, these results pointed toward the decomposition of wood or other organic materials, perfectly consistent with what you'd expect to find if a massive ancient structure had been preserved within layers of mud flow and sediment. The team then deployed ground-penetrating radar technology, and that's when things became truly extraordinary. As electromagnetic waves pulsed through the soil and bounced back to create subsurface images, a hidden architecture began to emerge on their screens. The scans revealed tunnel-like voids running through the formation, along with what appeared to be deck-like layers stacked one above another. Angular features showed up with startling clarity, and the overall pattern matched descriptions from the biblical account with eerie precision. Jones spoke to the Christian Broadcasting Network about these findings, carefully balancing scientific caution with genuine amazement. He noted that the structures they were seeing were exactly what you'd anticipate discovering. If this were indeed a man-made vessel, rather than a random geological formation, perhaps the most compelling evidence came from signs of ancient catastrophic flooding. When researchers analyzed the soil samples more closely, they found clay-like substances mixed with marine deposits, the kind of sedimentary layers that only form when land becomes submerged beneath water. Even more intriguing, they discovered remnants of seafood preserved within the soil matrix. Professor Kaya addressed these findings in an interview with the Jerusalem Post, explaining that the evidence suggested the region had experienced complete submersion during a catastrophic event. The implications aligned disturbingly well with narratives of a great deluge found in cultures around the world. Then came the dating results. Radiocarbon analysis placed the formation's age somewhere between 3,500 and 5,000 years, a range that corresponds almost exactly with scholarly estimates for when the biblical flood would have occurred. Media outlets worldwide seized on these findings. The New York Post ran with headlines about new evidence supporting the Noah's Ark narrative, while NDTV and Fox News provided extensive coverage. The researchers themselves remained measured, emphasizing they weren't claiming definitive proof, but acknowledging the evidence presented intriguing possibilities. If you're fascinated by mysteries where ancient legends collide with modern science, then subscribe to The Forgotten Depths. We're diving into the world's most compelling archaeological enigmas, bringing you stories that challenge everything you thought you knew about history. Now, as questions swirled around the Durupinar site, researchers prepared to employ even more advanced technology to reveal secrets locked away since the dawn of civilization. The scientists standing before the Durupinar formation understood that surface-level analysis would only take them so far. If they wanted real answers, the kind that could either validate or dismiss the mounting speculation, they needed technology capable of seeing through solid earth without disturbing what might lie beneath. That's when they brought in sophisticated ground-penetrating radar systems and electrical resistivity equipment that could map the subsurface with unprecedented detail. What these machines revealed would transform the investigation from interesting curiosity into something that demanded the world's attention. As the generators hummed to life and the radar devices began their systematic scans, Andrew Jones stood nearby, watching data stream across laptop screens in real time. Speaking to a production team from the Science Channel's series Forbidden History, Jones made his position clear. They weren't chasing legends or trying to prove predetermined conclusions. They were simply letting the data speak for itself, wherever that might lead. The operators manning the equipment were equally impartial. Many didn't even know about the site's biblical connections when they first arrived. But as the initial scans flickered onto their monitors, skepticism gave way to something else entirely. The radar waves penetrated deep into the Earth's crust, creating ghostly underground maps that defied easy explanation. Instead of the chaotic jumble of rock and sediment you'd expect from natural geological processes, the screens displayed clean parallel lines and well-defined structural patterns. One operator later told Fox News Digital that what they were seeing looked nothing like a natural formation. The scans identified what appeared to be a central corridor extending approximately 234 feet, flanked by what seemed to be side chambers or compartments. The angles were sharp and deliberate, the kind of right angles that nature rarely produces on its own. The excitement in the research tent became palpable when William Crabtree, the project's lead soil scientist, began examining the resistivity data alongside the radar results. These sophisticated tests used electrical currents to map areas of varying resistance within the Earth, revealing differences in density and composition that radar alone might miss. Speaking to the Daily Mail, Crabtree described what he was seeing with a mixture of professional caution and barely suppressed wonder.
Pleasure to be here.
You've seen it for yourself, I understand. Tell us about it. Could it be true?
The ground material inside the formation was fundamentally different from its surroundings.
There's been 4 scans done, and those scans are very compelling.
They were detecting elevated levels of organic material and potassium, precisely the chemical signature you'd expect from decayed wood that had been buried for millennia. The resistivity scans painted an even more detailed picture. They showed what appeared to be a hull structure extending more than 40 feet beneath the surface, with massive rib-like formations arching underneath. Perhaps most intriguing, the scans suggested the presence of 3 separate deck levels, divided by what could be interpreted as a central stairway with landings connecting them. John Larson, a New Zealand engineer leading the resistivity team, was blunt in his assessment. This wasn't a random pile of rocks shaped by erosion and chance. Whatever lay beneath the surface had been constructed with intention and purpose, and the technology was finally allowing them to see its skeletal remains after thousands of years of burial. While the radar scans provided a structural blueprint of what lay beneath the surface, the real story was being written in a language far more subtle, the chemical vocabulary of the Earth itself. Scientists shifted their focus to the soil, understanding that even when physical structures decay beyond recognition, they leave behind molecular fingerprints that can persist for thousands of years. The team began collecting samples from deep within the formation, carefully extracting dark, almost black earth that carried a distinct earthy smell. These samples were methodically labeled, sealed in individual containers, and transported to makeshift laboratory stations where analytical equipment waited to decode their secrets. The analysis focused on 3 critical measurements: organic content, potassium levels, and pH acidity. These weren't arbitrary choices. Each one could reveal whether the formation was merely an unusual rock pile or something far more significant. When the first results came back, the research tent fell silent. The soil extracted from within the structure contained nearly triple the organic material found in samples taken just meters away from the formation's perimeter. Andrew Jones presented these findings to Fox News Digital with careful precision, explaining that such dramatic differences in organic density strongly indicated the presence of decomposed wood or other biological materials that had broken down over millennia. Potassium levels within the formation were extraordinarily high, significantly elevated compared to the surrounding landscape. This matters because potassium is one of the primary elements released when wood and plant matter decompose. It's nature's calling card, a chemical signature that lingers long after the physical material has vanished. Professor Farouk Kaya offered his professional analysis to the Jerusalem Post, noting that the elevated potassium combined with altered pH values suggested prolonged organic decomposition over an extended timeline. Exactly what you'd anticipate finding if a massive wooden structure had been buried and left to decay beneath layers of soil and sediment. The pH measurements added another compelling dimension. Soil samples from outside the formation tested neutral, showing typical chemical balance from undisturbed mountain terrain. Inside the formation, however, the soil exhibited distinctly acidic properties, a telltale marker of organic decomposition. Scientists explained that this acidity develops over centuries as wood and other organic substances gradually break down, releasing compounds that alter the soil's chemistry in ways that persist even after every trace of the original material has disappeared. National Geographic reported on these findings, noting that the chemical signature discovered at Durupinar was rarely encountered in natural geological formations. William Crabtree, examining the data with a sense of awe, told reporters from Ararat that the chemical composition they were documenting was unlike anything typically seen in natural rock formations. The levels of organic matter and potassium all pointed unmistakably toward remnants of rotted wood. For Crabtree and his colleagues, these weren't just abstract numbers. They were a story written in the language of molecules and elements, a narrative about something extraordinary that had once occupied this exact spot on the mountainside. The implications rippled outward, sparking equal measures of fascination and debate. Some viewed the chemical evidence as the final piece of a millennia-old puzzle, potential proof that ancient flood narratives might have roots in actual historical events. Others urged restraint, reminding everyone that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Yet even the most cautious researchers had to acknowledge that the chemical residue told a compelling story, one of a distant past when something substantial and organic had existed here, leaving behind an indelible mark that modern science was only now learning to read. The deeper the researchers probed, the more bizarre the Durupinar formation became. Moving beyond soil chemistry and radar imaging, the team pushed their equipment to unprecedented depths, drilling and scanning 30 feet below ground level, where no natural erosion could have reached. What emerged on their screens defied simple geological explanations. Instead of random sediment layers or haphazard rock deposits, they discovered a complex network of geometric chambers arranged in what appeared to be a deliberate honeycomb pattern. A central passageway branched into smaller corridors, creating an intricate layout that looked less like the work of nature and more like the blueprint of something engineered with purpose and intelligence. Dr. Andrew Jones stared at the images with a mixture of scientific caution and undeniable amazement. Speaking to reporters, he described what they were seeing as resembling the skeletal framework of a ship, and not just any ship, but one of genuinely biblical proportions. The symmetry was unsettling. Natural geological processes tend toward chaos and irregularity, yet here were chambers with consistent spacing, corridors that maintained uniform dimensions, and structural elements that suggested planning rather than accident. Turkish archaeologist Dr. İpek Yılmaz examined the data alongside her colleagues and made a statement that sent ripples through the scientific community. This wasn't a cave system formed by water erosion or tectonic shifting. The symmetry was too precise, too intentional. Whatever they were looking at had been built, not randomly created by geological forces. The soil samples continued to yield surprises, physical evidence that this mountainous region had once been underwater. Dr. Elena Marquez, analyzing the findings for BBC Future, stated bluntly that this wasn't coincidence. They were looking at evidence of a cataclysmic event, something that had flooded the entire area with enough force to leave lasting geological scars. The carbon dating placed this catastrophic flooding at approximately 4,800 years ago, a timeline that aligned ominously with the Genesis account of the Great Flood. The discovery ignited fierce debates across the scientific world. Creationist groups saw the findings as divine vindication, proof that ancient scriptures contained literal historical truth. But MIT geologist Dr. Lin Chen urged caution, warning against jumping to conclusions based on incomplete data. The scientific method demands skepticism, especially when dealing with claims that carry such enormous cultural and religious implications. Yet even the skeptics struggled to explain away certain undeniable facts. The precise measurements matching ancient descriptions, the chemical signatures indicating massive organic decomposition, and the structural patterns that seemed too deliberate to dismiss as geological accidents. Perhaps the most tantalizing mystery remained hidden in a sealed chamber, detected by thermal imaging. The scans revealed empty spaces deep within the formation, rooms that had somehow remained intact and void of debris. Sonar equipment picked up metallic anomalies within these chambers, objects that reflected sound waves differently than surrounding rock or soil. What could possibly be preserved in those sealed spaces? The team couldn't say for certain without invasive excavation, which they were reluctant to attempt without more evidence. As darkness settled over the Durupinar site each evening, that question haunted the researchers. They stood at the threshold of potentially rewriting human history, Yet the final proof remained frustratingly out of reach, locked behind layers of earth and time that yielded their secrets only grudgingly. As the dust begins to settle on Mount Ararat and researchers continue their painstaking work at the Durupinar site, one fundamental question refuses to fade away. Did scientists actually uncover the remains of Noah's Ark, or have they simply stumbled upon nature's most elaborate masterpiece? The evidence pulls in both directions with equal force, creating a mystery that seems designed to torment anyone seeking simple answers. On one side, you have measurements that align perfectly with ancient texts, chemical signatures indicating massive wooden structures, and underground architecture that defies natural explanation. On the other side, you have geological skeptics insisting that given enough time, wind, water, and tectonic pressure, nature can create formations that occasionally mimic human design without any intentional construction whatsoever. The implications of either conclusion are staggering. If the Durupinar Formation truly is the final resting place of Noah's Ark, then we're not just talking about validating a religious narrative, we're confronting physical evidence of a global catastrophe that reshaped civilization itself. Every flood myth told across cultures would suddenly carry more weight as potential memories of an actual historical event. The story would transform from metaphor into documented reality, forcing us to reconsider how much truth lies buried within ancient texts we've long dismissed as primitive mythology. It would mean that somewhere around 4,800 years ago, humanity faced an extinction-level event that wiped entire civilizations off the map, leaving only scattered survivors to rebuild and pass down warnings to future generations. But if the formation is simply a geological quirk, an accident of erosion, sedimentation, and mineral deposits that happen to create boat-like proportions, then we're witnessing something equally remarkable. We'd be seeing proof of how desperately humans want to find patterns and meaning in the natural world, how readily we connect random phenomena to our deepest cultural narratives. Either way, the Durupinar site serves as a mirror, reflecting our relationship with mystery, faith, and the stories that define us. The researchers themselves remain caught between conviction and uncertainty. Professor Kaya has been careful to emphasize that while the evidence is compelling, it's not yet conclusive enough to make definitive declarations. Years of additional work lie ahead. More drilling, more testing, more analysis before anyone can say with absolute certainty what lies beneath that mountain ridge. Andrew Jones echoes this caution, though his excitement is barely concealed when he discusses the structural features and chemical anomalies they've documented. For the local communities living in the shadow of Mount Ararat, the formation has always been more than just rocks and soil. It's a source of pride, a connection to stories their ancestors told for countless generations. The site has become a pilgrimage destination, a place where people come seeking connection to something greater than themselves, regardless of what the final scientific verdict might be. So what do you believe lies beneath that formation? Is it the remnants of a vessel that survived the greatest catastrophe in human history? Or is it simply stone shaped by time into a form that speaks to our deepest myths? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're hungry for more mysteries that challenge everything we think we know about ancient history, subscribe to The Forgotten Depths. Hit that subscribe button and join us as we continue exploring incredible discoveries that are rewriting our understanding of the past.